and welcome to How Did You Show. Today I have a very super exciting guest with me, a very good friend of mine, Tana Hassan Hick, who is a entrepreneur, he's a mentor, he's a landlord, he does a lot of things at the same time and somehow is managing it all. So he's going to be a very interesting person to learn from. So hi Tana, and welcome on my show.
Hi, Link. It's an absolute pleasure, Links. I've been looking forward to this for a while. I've been waiting for the invite to come along as well for a short while, because obviously, as you know, we like you said, we've known each other for a while anyway. So I've been loving what you've been doing up till now, and yeah, excited to be here.
Oh, thank you. I'm very excited about having you on the show. Yeah, as you said, we've been it's been a what's the word again? Long waiting.
Long time coming.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, it has. Yeah,
yes, I'm
definitely
glad
been a long time coming. But
yeah, so as I said, that you do a lot of things in your life within the property industry. So
yeah.
as I said, that there's going to be a lot to learn from you. So I thought you're going to be fantastic guests on my show. So can you tell us, for those who don't know Tana, a little bit more about who is Tana?
Yeah, sure. Well, yeah, good first question, I suppose. So basically, yeah, you introduced me as Tana Hassan Hicks. That's my full name. That's my legal name. I'm sort of known more like as Tana H Hicks now. So I've sort of dropped the Hassan into an H. So for those who sort of know me as Tana H Hicks, that's how you can find me on all social, etc. So that's the first thing to say on that point. But yeah, basically, I've been in property for the last 10 years. I sort of bought my first property 10 years ago. I was a civil engineer before that. Grew up on the Isle of Wight, a nice sheltered living and lifestyle down there. Loved the countryside, loved the seaside, etc. Moved on to the what I call the mainland to go to university to qualify as a civil engineer. Got a job there. Didn't like it, which we'll get into, I'm sure, at some point, as to how I then transitioned over to property. And I've now been property full time since 2014, so 6 years.
Nice.
Like you say, I've never been one to shy away from giving stuff a try, learning on the job, so to speak. And yeah, I've sort of very fortunate to have what I have now. So
Fantastic.
It's been a great journey.
And well deserved. I'm watching your journey, and you are one busy bee, very busy. So yeah, it's great to see. And it looks like you're really loving what you're doing. So that's important. That's the most important thing.
Yeah, of course. And I'm a busy bee because I'm passionate about it. I love it. It excites me. It hasn't always been that way, to be fair. You know, I've had some challenging moments along the way, and you know, like anything, I think it's never as rosy as what may appear from the outside. But certainly over the last 2 to 3 years, it's made me sort of change of mindset, particularly. It's been great. And I think, you know, yes, I'm busy because I think naturally I like to take on lots of stuff, and I love starting new projects. I love starting new things. So it's just now managing that kind of to keep everything ticking along, and you know, make sure that I'm still finishing stuff off before I start new things. But that's not really in my nature. I like to just start new stuff. So
Nice.
but yeah, I've learned how to deal with that over the years and manage that side of things. So
Nice.
yeah, always busy.
Better
busy than bored, eh?
Oh, exactly. Well, what I'm learning as well from busy people is like the way how to manage it all is basically just leveraging and outsourcing, isn't it, really? And that way you can be creative as much as you want to. As soon as you outsource and leverage well enough, you can do whatever you want.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, and I think, you know, definitely leverage. You've picked up a good word there, because there's loads of different ways to leverage things. It's not just necessarily people or money, particularly, but you know, there's ways to leverage time, and you can leverage lots of different things. The key for me in terms of productivity and efficiency is just being really clear on what sort of the outcomes are each time. So yes, I've got loads of stuff going on, but I will be really clear on what my schedule is for the week. I'll batch tasks into certain days, into certain things. So I'm always ticking stuff off, or things are always ticking over, should I say, on a daily, weekly basis. So I've kind of working on stuff rather than kind of within the nitty gritty. And yeah, I will get sucked into the nitty gritty every so often.
Yeah.
But that's definitely a skill that I've learned having gone self-employed, and something that we're never really taught, right, at school and in the institutions that we go through as through education. Is we're never actually taught how to manage our time efficiently,
How to be
and for ourselves.
life.
How to be what? Sorry.
How to be an adult in a real life,
Well,
basically.
yes, yeah, and kind of, and how to say disciplined, and how to prioritize tasks, and how to work out what's going to give you the biggest results. And I think part of that, and I call me a bit of a I don't know what the best word to describe it is, but um, is that I think that we're all sort of molded into a certain way, which is to kind of go through school, get a job, pay our tax, retire on a pension that's been looked after by somebody else driving a really fast car, and then struggle through life. And I think that's kind of the mentality and the mindset that we sort of are instilling into our generations. And certainly I felt as a kid growing up. Now looking back, that's kind of how I feel. I may be wrong, people may disagree with me, that's absolutely fine, whatever. But certainly my view is that we're never taught those skills. So when you do go full time for yourself, and as you know as well, being kind of working for yourself and doing this as well, it's a real challenge to kind of get over yourself and sort of unpick what it is that you need to work on, and and kind of establish that kind of that program or structure. Because we're kind of used to getting up and going to school at 8 o'clock, let's say, until 3, and then we have our tea, and then we play, and then we watch TV, and then we go to bed. We've done that for all our childhood years, let's say. Then as an adult, when we transition through like university and college to work, we then go to work at 9, we leave at 5, we go home, we have dinner, we then maybe go out, and then we go to bed. And then we do that every single day, and that structure is there for us. So when we break that and then start working for ourselves, like in property, which I know a lot of people who are listening to this will ultimately want to do, they want to transition themselves to that. There's all of a sudden all these new skills that you have to learn.
Absolutely.
It's like, wow, I've got all this time. How do I use it to the best of my abilities? How do I use it to to the most efficient way? And that hit me huge, like massively, when I first transitioned back in 2014-15. And I think I struggled massively with that focus and that just general overwhelm and stuff like that, because I wasn't expecting that to become an issue. Now, obviously, we've just coming through lockdown. I think a lot of people have maybe been through that as well themselves over the last 6 months, or how long it's been actually, so 3-4 months. Of that suddenly, right, you're going to be working from home, you've got no structure, you've now got to and I relate to that, and it's it's definitely a challenge. And I think hopefully now people have kind of after a few months are starting to get used to that, maybe starting to and maybe also realize, actually, this is quite a nice lifestyle I've got here. Let's try and do this more full time. So but anyway, I'm waffling. Sorry, you asked me who I was, and I've just gone off on a big tangent. As you know,
But
that's
that's
what I
good.
do. So.
It's really important, as you said. It's like going self-employed, as you said. It's a huge change in life. Not only because suddenly you need to find work. There's so much in it. The structure, as you said, the routines you have. How no one's going to pay for your holidays anymore, and things like that. It's like you are in charge of your time and what you do with 24 hours. So
yeah, exactly.
It was a good waffle.
Yes, thanks. Yeah, no, it's good, and I think it's been a great journey, and I'm super excited for people who are listening to this who are kind of just about to embark on that as well, because it is a great journey of learning, and obviously as you go along, it's your journey just changes. And I think the other thing to realize and remember is that sort of 80% of our results is all in our mind.
Yeah.
So and that's something, again, I never really took seriously when I first went in property. I thought all these kind of gurus out there, or experts, the likes of Tony Robbins, and the likes of Rob Moore, even I know he was on your show the other week, professing about the importance of mindset. I kind of always sort of held that as a kind of the airy fairy. I don't need that, I'll just crack on. I've got quite a technical brain, I know all the knowledge, I've got all the kind of I know the strategies, the techniques, etc. But actually, that only equates to 20% of the results. 80% is up here. Because if the person driving that machine or turning that handle is not actually turning that handle or being efficient, or being able to get out of their own way, then you're not going to get the results. And so, people should never underestimate the power of the brain. It's a huge
I
thing.
love that.
So,
Absolutely love that. and that's coming from someone, as you said, that you were engineering, so you thought that, you're good with numbers, you're good with things like that, and you would think that, oh, I can handle this. And as you said, no, there's a lot in there. And yeah, that's a really, really good point. And yeah, I love that. I got the massive book from Tony Robbins just right next to me as well. And yeah, it's so important to follow the people, as you say, mindset gurus as well, because your mentality is most important thing to start with when you're going to any business, to have a right mindset, right attitude towards life, towards business, etc. Yeah, so yeah, brilliant.
And to be honest, that's kind of why I've created Engineering Wealth, which is all about engineering that wealth. So it's kind of understanding what it is that you're trying to achieve, and then backwards engineering the steps to get there. Whereas I think, and so that we've actually got a very clear plan, which is a step-by-step plan that we can follow. But what we're doing as part of that process is we're getting it very clear in our minds as to why we want to get there, what it is that we actually want to achieve. Because, if we don't have really clear goals, then we kind of get sidetracked and distracted. And I kind of use the analogy, which is, if you ever want to get somewhere, let's say you want to, you're stood on one side of a lake and you want to get to the other side of the lake, right? And you get in a boat and you push yourself out onto that lake, and then you hit the engine go, and then you just pull the rudder up. You've got no direction. You're going to go somewhere, but you're not going to necessarily go in the most direct route. You don't even know what position on the other side of the lake that you want to get to. And so really what it's all about is it's understanding, right, on this side of the lake, I want to go the other side, and I want to go specifically to that point. Now I know exactly where I want to go. Now let's work out the route, which is the direct route. Let's get in that boat and let's head straight that way. And that's all down to mindset and goal setting and planning, strategy, etc. So
nice. Yeah, there's the saying as well, not that you get to your destination if you don't know where you're going.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's like a GPS, right? If you get in a car and you want to go somewhere, first of all, you need to know where you are right now. So you have to have a really good understanding of exactly where it is you are right now in life, financially, personally, mindset wise. And then you want to then be really clear as to where you want to go. So you plot in the route or the postcode that you want to go to, and then the GPS works out the route, right? So turn left here, turn right there, and stuff. And that it's exactly the same thing in life. If you don't know where it is you want to go, people don't end up getting there.
Yeah.
And then they wonder why they're not getting the success or the results that they want, or living the lifestyles that other people seem to be living. And it's because they haven't got that clarity, first of all, where they are right now. Secondly, where they want to go, and then they haven't worked the steps backwards.
Vision.
Yeah,
So
vision is so cool.
Right. Yeah. Well, I would love to know more, and I'm sure that our listeners would love to know more as well about your engineering wealth and what that is, and etc. But can I just first start with you, like, why did you decide to go for property, and how did you get into property?
Yeah, good question. So I've always had a passion for property as a kid, growing up, sort of watching, the likes of Grand Designs, location. Especially, I'd say Grand Design is up there as my favorite program of all time. Just the kind of the way that first of all, from the creativity side of the people creating these incredible like buildings and things. But I've always sort of enjoyed property and residential property particularly, and design, and I wanted to actually be an architect, for example. When I was growing up, I just didn't get the grades to get into uni to do that, so I sort of fell on the next thing, which was engineering. So I've always had that passion there for property. So my parents, my folks have as I was growing up, they picked up a few buy-to-let sort of single-let properties as a way to park some of their funds and investments. So I saw them, not big, maybe 4 or 5 properties. But as a teenager, when you're seeing your parents do that, you sort of ask questions, why are you doing it? They explain, like, it's a good investment, etc.
Yeah.
And I was in there painting with them, like at weekends or whatever, to kind of get them all set up. So having followed that, that kind of built a bit of a passion, which is like, one day when I can afford my own, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to buy a few. And then I started learning how the power of property, and then how it can build wealth, and how you can leverage it, how you can earn money while you sleep effectively, like all these things, and that we all hear about, the amazing things about property. So that's where the passion came from. And then even though I sort of went to university, ended up in engineering, then I started working a job that I didn't really enjoy. I was like, right, now's the time to kind of make that jump, and that's when I started plotting how I'll do it, And so for those first sort of 4 or 5 years, I had a really clear plan as to how I was going to go from my job to full-time property. And so I worked out exactly what funds I had, how many properties I needed to buy, what net income it needed to be, how I could leverage them, what funds I needed to borrow. So I mapped out this really clear plan. And because I had this really clear plan and this real drive to get to where I wanted to be, like I sort of implemented it, I made it happen. And then when I got there, it was like, wow, I've got all this free time. I've let's go play golf loads and cycle loads. And then the sort of the wheels started coming off there, because then I didn't have that next plan. I didn't have that next, right, now I'm here. Now what, how am I going to grow this? What's my real committed, end destination again? So that's kind of when the wheels fell off a little bit. Also, that's my doorbell. And then that's kind of where obviously I probably learned the most about life, business, property, and myself, to kind of overcome those. And then it was only a few years ago when I sort of re-established those real clear goals, which is now sort of how things are great again now. So yeah, that's where it came from. Yeah.
Lovely. What a little difference. Like you said that you were growing up with already having, the actual properties which they were making cash flow. I grew up with a dad who was a builder, and I had to do all these things, as you said, painting, and I did the flooring, changing windows, all sorts of skills I learned with my dad, but on our own house. So my parents not business minded, but he was a builder. So I have a similar, like I had to do all this work, but only on our own house. So my parents I didn't learn the actual business side from properties when I was little. That's amazing. Good on you. Good for you.
Yeah, thank you.
Amazing. Right, Anna. So, as I said, I would definitely want to know more about all the other projects and all the companies and everything you're running. But shall we jump now for on the main question of this podcast? So, we're going to tell us a bit more about how did you get your first lease option? So, how did you do that?
Yes. So obviously, as you know, when we were talking about what should we talk about today on the podcast, so there's quite a few different things we could have talked about, and I think I know one of the things that is quite a hot topic and has been for a while in property is obviously the purchase lease option strategy. So the lease option strategy, otherwise known as, and so basically, I've got a small portfolio of lease options. When I first transitioned full time into property, I was looking to sort of supplement the rental income that I built up with some form of trading income, so some kind of business income. And that's something I would always recommend people look to try and do, is to have that kind of rental income, but also have a supplementary trading business or some kind of service business that kind of duplicates it, because you're then getting two sources of income and then obviously creating those multiple sources as you go. But so basically, within the trading business, I was like, right, I'm going to start sourcing, packaging, flipping lease options. I did a bit of training at the time, and you know what it's like in the industry right now is this is it can be quite a bit of a sensitive topic, training education. Unfortunately there's a few people who've been before us who have tarnished it a touch, but I did this training at the time. When you invest quite a lot of money in training, and then after not very long you realize you already know more than the trainer. It was sort of one of those. And so basically, I was sort of trying to learn. I basically fell into the marketing funnel, which is like, these lease option strategies are amazing, make loads of wealth, blah blah blah. It doesn't cost you a lot to do. You can package and flip them anyway. So I started heading down that route, and then, like I said, realized that I kind of knew a little bit more already. But then also there was a limit to what I was able to learn on that course as it was. So I learned some of the concepts. To be fair, I did learn some stuff, but the ongoing kind of implementation side was lacking. So I thought, right, the best thing for me to do is just literally go out there, and before I can start really packaging these and really truly understanding these and then selling these onto clients, it's pretty immoral for me to be doing that if I don't actually know how they work or have done it myself. So I just went out there and I just found and bought some lease options. So the first one, for example, I purchased it from another sourcer. So they had found this lease option, and it turned out that he'd worked, found a landlord. He'd set up a number of lease options across his portfolio, and he was packaging and selling them off. So the first one that I found, Or I can't remember how I knew him or got the details. To be honest, it was a while ago. But he sent me this information. It's property up in Manchester, in a place called Hyde, which is the south east of sort of Greater Manchester, near Ashton upon Lyne. Never been there. Never had been there before. I still haven't been there today, to be fair. And so I found this lease option, and then I set about my due diligence, which I knew how to do anyway through my sort of having bought properties before. Find out about it, and so finding out all the details. So it was a 5-year option. It was to purchase the property at £75,000 at any point within that 5 years. I was to pay the landlord's mortgage payments, which were £242 a month. And I knew that I could rent the property out on sort of to a standard sort of buy-to-let tenant for £495, £500 a month.
So you had a good margin there.
So there was basically, like, I mean, it wasn't a massive margin. You know, it was about £200 after costs, because again, it was in Manchester. So by the time I paid an agent, etc., there's about £200 net cash flow, which is, you know, decent, considering I had to pay him a sourcing fee. So his sourcing fee initially was something like 3,000 or 4,000. I negotiated that down. I think I only paid about 2,000 in the end for that. And then I just set about actually figuring out how these things work. So it's like, right, now what? Now I've found this deal. It seems to stack up. What do I need to do now? So kind of, I asked somebody to go in who was there locally to give me a price on any works that needed to be done. I needed to put about £2,000 worth of works in it to redecorate it, to get it ready. So I did that. I found a solicitor who could do my legals for me. So I again went through that process with them, learning, asking questions to the solicitor as you go along. Because again, you know, you're paying them for a service. So my philosophy has always been, well, if you're paying them to provide you something, then you should be able to ask them questions.
Of course.
And if they're not willing to answer your questions as a client of theirs, then they're not the right person to service your needs. And I apply that to anyone, whether it be a mortgage broker, a solicitor, a builder, or whatever. And then it means you just need to find somebody else, because it's about finding a team who's willing to work together to kind of teach each other, grow together.
Yeah.
So I found these solicitors, and you know, they were great. They were giving me some good advice, feedback, etc. Went through the legal process. We set up the option contracts. I learned through that you needed, because up to that point in the education, I didn't really know the details, because the person who was teaching didn't know the details themselves as to what contracts get put in place. You know, what are the actual liabilities and the responsibilities for me as the option holder. So I learned that, you know, you have an option agreement, you have a management agreement, you have a power of attorney, you put a restriction on the title using an RX1 form, for example. And then also the other thing which hadn't been taught, which the solicitor said to me, is what we also do is we get the vendor, the existing landlord, to pre-sign a TR1 form, which is a transfer form, which obviously when you want to then exercise the option, if you can't track them down, it's already done for you. So you can then complete the transfer of the actual ownership of the property to your name, so the legal transfer of the title. Wow. So again, all these things I'm going through, I'm like, wow, I'm learning so much here from actually doing it. Now, obviously, it cost me £2,000 to pay the sourcer, cost me £2,000 to do some refurb, and it probably cost me about £1,000 in legal fees. So it cost me about £5,000 to get hold of this lease option. But the learning that I went through from just doing it was way more valuable than the £4,000 for £3,500 or whatever it was I paid for this training course. Wow. So I was like, wow. I mean, you know, there's a lot to be said about learning by doing, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So that's how I got hold of it. That's how I sort of found the first lease option. That's how I sort of learned more about them. And then obviously I set about tenanting it. So I tenanted it, got a local agent up there who tenanted it for me. There's a few months voids, which I factored into the figures anyway. But then, so all in all, once it was up and running, I'd spent, like I said, about £5,000 getting it up and running. It was earning me £200 a month net cash flow. We had a bit of maintenance because, again, it was a bit of rundown anyway. So over the course of that first year, we probably turned net cash flow of about £1,400 So on my initial outlay, so 14, if I just get my calculator here, so 1,400 on £5,000 is a 28% return on that £5,000. So obviously that's a really great return for that money, right?
100%.
But it didn't stop there, because so obviously that was just the first year, and I had it on a 5-year option. So, but basically after a couple of years, it was doing fine, and I was fortunate to have a tenant who lived there and stayed there for those first 3 years. I think they stayed there in the end, and then they handed their notice in that they were going to move out. And a couple of months before that, the landlord had reached out to me directly, because obviously I had his details. And the first thing I did when I took the lease option on is I contacted him. I called him and I introduced myself, and I said, look, I'm now the guys handed this over to me. And he was obviously a bit confused, because they're like, hang on a minute, I thought I'd agreed it with this guy.
Yeah.
So there's a bit of that going on as well. So it's very important to ensure that if you're going to be doing lease options and you're then not going to be holding on to them, because you can assign them to other people, you're very transparent with the vendors, because that's where a lot of relationships break down. And it's something that I learned quite early on, that lease options they're quite a bit of a buzz word. Certainly they are now, even, and they were when I did them. This was sort of 6 years ago.
Right.
Loads of people were picking them all up. And it was like, yeah, it's great, because you can assign them. People were teaching people that, you can assign them, you can package them, you can flip them. But people were then getting a bit sort of over focused on the money that they could make, the returns that they could make. And they weren't necessarily passing on the knowledge and the fact that you've got to remain ethical. You've got to, you've got to pay the monthly payments. You've got to, stick to what says in your contracts. And so a lot of I was seeing a lot of this happening within the network of which I was in, that I'd purchased this training in. People were packaging, and then landlords would be phoning up and be like, well, who actually owns my property now? Who is actually in control? And the landlord who I was with mine had, like I said a moment ago, had agreed to a number of lease options with this sourcer. And he called me a few years later, and he just sort of said, because I'd made up struck up a relationship with him, and I said, look, I'm now you're the guy who's looking after it. This is, I'm going to make sure I'm going to pay you, etc., etc. If there's any issues, I'll pick them up. And then he called me a few years later and was just like, by the way, do you know who owns all my other ones, just through your network? And I said, sorry, I have no idea. And it was basically this guy had sort of reassigned, which he's allowed to do legally. He's allowed to reassign these options to other people. But then those other people hadn't made it clear to the vendor, to the landlord of this portfolio, that they were the person who controlled it. They weren't paying their rental payments, example, like I was, for example. And so he came to me and he said, "Are you able to help me out?" So I tried to do a bit of digging to try and track some stuff down for him, but unfortunately I wasn't able to sort of achieve much. But he came back to mine. He said, "Look, I know we're on a 5-year option, but to be honest with you, I'm being messed about by all these other ones. I just want to get rid. Would you be happy to exercise your option now?" And so I looked at it and I said, well, if I'm honest, not right now, because it's from an investment perspective. I don't, first of all, have the cash on hand to purchase outright. I think it's not also worth the 75k yet. So he said, well, let's renegotiate. I just want to get done. I don't mind. So we went back to the renegotiation board. It turned out he had a mortgage of around 50 something there. And so he said, would you buy it off me for 65 grand? I was like, wow, I could potentially just there. All of a sudden I've made 10 grand overnight.
Yeah.
I was like, are you sure? Because obviously I've got this option at 75 and I could, we could wait it out, and I'm quite keen to buy it in a couple of years at the end of the option. I was like, no, I just want to get rid. Will you be able to buy it for me for 65k? Because it still works for me. I've got 10 grand extra.
He makes
I
money.
just want to get rid. He makes money. And I said, well, I'll tell you what then. I will, but I will also cover your legal fees as well. So he was like, oh, that would be great. So because I felt a little bit like, well, hang a minute, unjustified. I've agreed this contract up front to buy it at 75. I was happy with that. He's now offering it for 65. So in the end, I said, yeah, let's do it. So I then purchased it from him early. I exercised my option. I then purchased the property, and I now own that property. I've since now done a bigger refurb to it. So I spent about 6 or 7k on it last year. And now I've got a new tenant in there paying 575. So I've upped the rent as well on that. And that's nice now, a little earner. So And the market has gone up as well. So the value's gone up since then. So over the last couple of years, it's gone up to, it's around about £100,000 now. So I'm now in the process of remortgaging that. And I'll be able to get all my money back out, and it will be making me about £200 a month again, but I won't have any money left in that deal. So that deal has now been a full kind of no money down, but it's not really a true no money down because I still had to buy it. So I still had to find 70 grand in cash, which fortunately I had available anyway through my investments as it was. So I bought it in 70 grand in cash, remortgage it. I'm going to get 82,000 back out. And then I'll keep it long term. So yeah, so it's been a good little, not only has it been an amazing learning curve in terms of the first one I did, but it's also turned into a great deal. But also from that one, for having gone through that, I then started, right, now I know how these work. I started going out, I sourced them, I started packaging them. So I've sourced, packaged, flipped a number of lease options now over the years. A few years ago, I've got others in my portfolio as well. I think they're a great strategy, and I also sort of talk about this in my training at the moment, which is I believe it's now, having gone through what we're going through, it's now going to become another really core and sort of key strategies over the next 5 to 10 years. And it's one of the strategies that I teach in my training courses, because not only is it great for just that type of scenario, which is sort of the single let type, but it combined with sort of things like commercial conversions, HMOs, developments, you can start, if you can build your knowledge up on different strategies, you can start combining them. And the lease option strategy is really, really powerful to minimize risk as an investor. So if you can pick stuff up on an option, you can obviously, not only can you make some money up front, but you completely minimize the amount of money that you're putting on the table. So it's all about, one of the core philosophies I have for people is how, as investors, we should always be looking at ways to maximize the upside and minimize the downside. But what I mean by that is, how can I maximize my returns by minimizing our risk or exposure to losses? And so the lease option strategy is one way of doing that, because again, the less money you're actually having to put on the table is obviously means that there's less money to potentially be lost. So yeah, really, really powerful strategy, something that I've then gone on to kind of learn a lot more about and start using a lot more. And yeah, it's definitely one for folks to be looking into. And you know, if people are interested, obviously, in kind of asking questions about it, then please reach out.
Amazing.
And I've got training courses, etc., which I can refer people to later on.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, 100% talk about your engineering wealth.
Yeah. No worries. Yeah, it's fine.
Definitely. That's amazing. So how would you say, if someone, someone who's listening to this and they just learning more about, lease option, they never heard of it or something, how do you look for a properties and a lease option? Is there something is advertised, or is something you need to find and negotiate the terms with the vendor yourself? Or what would you do? What would you advise those beginners if they're like, oh, lease option sounds amazing, how do I find those?
Yeah, great question. I think the key thing here is to be understanding, first of all, the core principles of how the lease option is structured and how it works.
Yes.
And really it's just a set of contracts. So the head terms, for example, would just be
Sorry, coincidence. These are my lease option contracts. Nothing to do with this episode. They literally nothing to do with
Good. Yeah, good. So I think the first step that anyone's got to do, like any strategy, like anything in properties, is about the kind of getting that base education. So I wouldn't want anyone to sort of start going out and start trying to negotiate lease options if obviously you don't understand how they work. So that's the first step, like it is with any strategy, like I said, to understand that you've got a term that you lease the property for. You then have an option period, so the period in which you have that option to buy. It's not an obligation; it's an option. You have to pay usually upfront an option fee to kind of formalize those contracts. So this is where people may have heard of you can buy a property for £1, because usually the option price or the option fee is £1. But it doesn't, not necessarily always that way. So certainly on like bigger land development stuff or commercial stuff, you would maybe pay a bigger option fee, maybe 5, 10, 15, 20 grand, whatever, to get that under control under an option. and then you have a part of the lease period. You may have lease payments to make, so monthly payments or annual payments, whatever. And the great thing about the contracts, they're completely flexible, they're completely malleable, so they can be, every single term can be negotiated with the vendor. So first of all, get your head around what the contracts are, what your responsibilities would be as the option holder, but also how it could impact the vendor as well, or the party that you're going to be working with. That's the first thing. The second thing is then a case of, right, well, understanding who it is who would go into an option with you. Okay, because not everyone's going to go into an option with you, especially, you know, as a landlord myself, I'm not, if somebody came to me and said, look, can I take your properties on a lease option, I'd probably say no, because I don't need that. Okay. Mm-hmm. But so what I was going to say is then it's trying to then also then understand who it is that who would go into that. So the reason we're entering into a period, I believe, of where these are going to start coming to the fore as a strategy is because a lot of people who would be in the position to do an option would be people who are in a bit more financial difficulty, who maybe have been trying to sell a property for a while and can't. Maybe they've been trying to rent a property for a long period of time and they've got a long void and they can't. So this, you know, it's really like a rent to rent. For people who know the rent to rent strategy, it's basically rent to rent with an option to purchase bolted on. So, you know, the people who would offer rent to rent properties would potentially also be open to an option, because they don't want the hassle anymore of running it. They don't want the voids anymore, or the risk. Maybe they've got a high mortgage and they can't sell the property, because if they sold the property, they wouldn't even make money, or they maybe lose money. So if they're in like negative equity, for example, not many people are in negative equity anymore, but there certainly was a lot after the recession in 2008, 2009. Because obviously the market has gone up now. So, but there are still people out there who are in that difficulty. So it's about understanding that, also understanding the other type of people who would be willing to do an option. That may be people who have got development opportunities or an asset where you can maximize the value. So, you know, maybe like for example, I on Tuesday I went out and I was looking at a pub with a big car park. So, you know, you know, I haven't run any numbers on it yet, for example, but a possibility for that would be I could approach him and say, look, okay, well, I'm not interested in the pub because I'm not a pub, you know, landlord. And also pubs are fairly sensitive things to get planning permission to convert. This is in like a conservation area and, you know, a village. It's very unlikely. But I could say to him, well, instead, can I have an option on your car park? So I will say, right, I'm going to have an option to then go away, get planning permission. And if we get planning permission, it will add value and then we'll split the profits later on. So there's that scenario where a lease option worked really, really well as well. Same with like a commercial building. Let's say a business owns an office block and they no longer need it. Let's say after COVID, they've adapted, they've gone more virtual, they no longer need that office block. And you as the developer come along and you say, right, this is perfect for conversion into resi. But rather than go to them and say, right, I'm going to buy it outright and then with planning or without planning, and then you're putting all that money on the table, you can say, look, let's have an option. So let's have a 5-year option or a 3-year option whereby I've got the exclusivity over that building, and then I can put the only money that I'm putting down at risk is the money to get planning permission. So you're looking more like 15, 20, 30K, 40K. If it's, you know, big deal, then you'll be looking at a lot more than that. But that's all the money that you're then putting at risk. So, and you've got an exclusivity period, you know, you can buy it at a certain price, and it would work for them because they're getting maybe an option fee up front, and you're maybe going to pay them a little bit of money throughout the option as well. So it's all about a win-win for both parties, and that's really, really important. And so you'll have more success finding options when you're finding somebody who's motivated to do one and also understands the benefits of doing it for them. We can't always be greedy, because as we know with options, they're a great tool anyway. So if we're trying to be too greedy with them, then we won't get anything over the line.
And that's like with everything else in the life, isn't it?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Greedy, you might end up with nothing. So
yeah, Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, and as you said, when we mentioned the word motivated, so this is just for the beginners out there, just as a, because obviously we use those phrases, all the time. But for the beginners out there, motivated seller is what you're looking for in many with many strategies, but with a lease option, as you said, no, it's huge. It has to be motivated because the landlord who is just happy with what they have no issues, they're just getting nice cash flow and the capital growth on the property. Why would I go for that? So yeah, it's really important to find a motivated seller. So that's
Yeah,
very
100%. And there's a number of reasons why they may be motivated. That everyone's circumstances are different. So, one of the core skills that we've got to develop is how to extract that from them. So when we're having those conversations and those discussions with them about what is the situation that you're in, what's your ideal outcome, and the questions that we then ask them is about trying to find out what it is that they actually want to achieve.
how you can help as
And
well.
how you can help. And then obviously, an option may not always be the right solution. What we also don't want to be doing is we don't want to be kind of trying to force a square peg into a round hole. If an option isn't the best solution for them, then they're not going to understand the benefits of it, and they're not going to go for it. But if you also don't extract enough about their situation before offering them an option, then that won't work out. So it's normally financial is a big one. Time may be another big one as well. So if people are relocating or they're they just want to get rid of something in a really short time frame, usually maybe motivated by money because they've got a void and financial distress. They're normally the two biggest ones. Another one though could be like a landlord who has got a big portfolio and they just want to sell that portfolio. They maybe they're winding it down. So an option strategy might be great to be able to start disposing of those assets over a phased manner over a period of time. That also is a tax efficient way of disposing it for them. So splitting it across different tax years, for example. So there's a number of different things there. Yeah.
That's a very clever one. Yeah, 100%. Amazing. Yeah. So Dana, that's amazing. What would you say that will be your top tips in regards to lease option topic for those listeners out there?
Top tips.
Absolutely, we covered what it is, how to explore them, how to speak to the vendors. But obviously, that you need to find out what the issue is, what where the pain points are, etc. Now you do have the property, and so what would you say will be your top tips because obviously you learn from complete start, from down there. You went straight with your, what's the word I'm looking for again?
Just learning on the job, you mean?
Full in, basically. That's what I was looking for.
Yeah, I committed to that learning process. And the reason I did that is because I knew that having my sort of engineering brain, I'm good with numbers, and I knew I'd be able to work out the key elements of the process. And I backed myself in that respect. But I think the key, and to be fair, I did have some base knowledge as well. I did spend time. I did, like I said, invest in that training, and it did give me some base knowledge. It just didn't give me as much as I was expecting. And so it always the first topic, and we've mentioned it already, is about that initial education. Now, some people take that too far. Some people just educate, and they never actually pull the trigger. And there's a lot of people in the industry out there who pry on those people because they just want them to buy more products, educational products. Now, there becomes a point we've got to get real. Okay, education is great, and we must have that base education. So the first tip is get the basic education, but the second tip is to know when to take the action. Okay, don't let the fear of taking the action hold you back and keep you within that education sphere. Okay. Or that beginner sphere, because a lot of people, and it is great. There's a lot of, and don't get me wrong, there's a lot of great education out there as well. So I'm not knocking the education industry at all. I'm just sort of, I suppose I'm relating to the fact that there is, there's some, there's some realities to it. But I see personally as well, a lot of people get stuck in that initial sphere because they're afraid of stepping out of it. Because they're within the comfort zone of, right, well, I'm around people, I'm learning every day, which is, again, really, really important to be doing. And you should always be learning every day. But there becomes a point where it's like, right, guys, get out there and do something. Risk the next thing. Yeah, because if you don't take that risk, then you're not going to get that reward. And it will always be a risk. That, you know, there's no such thing as zero risk when in investing, right? But by having the right people around you, the right educational base, that foundation will help minimize that risk going forward. And it's then about getting the right guidance as you go through, and the source of answers and the source of, you know, people to help on that journey. But so the first tip is education. The second tip is know when to take action.
The trigger.
Pull that trigger. And then I think the third tip. It's a good question. I should have prepared these, to be fair. The third tip.
You said you love going live.
Yeah, exactly. The third tip I would say is to not over worry about things. So it's kind of like the fear, okay. But the third tip is, and it's a mindset thing. It's just to, and it's I'm going to link this into my favorite book, because I know you're going to ask me this question about the favorite book.
Yeah.
And my favorite book is a book written by a guy called Mark Manson called The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck.
I have it on my Audible. I have not started it yet.
It's an amazing book, because what it does is it kind of, it's obviously, it makes you realize that, well, what is the worst thing that can happen? And often 95% of the time, the worst thing can happen is not really that bad anyway. So it's sort of understanding, okay, it's sort of being smart. Well, obviously you don't want to be putting like 200 grand on the table and making a really foolish mistake, because the worst thing that can happen there is you're going to lose 200 grand. But it's also not overthinking things or over egging the potential losses, because a lot of the time we kind of hold ourselves back through the fear of what's going to happen, or the negative press or negative comments or the judgment from other people, or, oh, this guy or girl went into this deal and she lost 10 grand because she didn't know what she was doing. I mean, to be honest with you, that for me means nothing to me, because I don't really care about that. But for me, it's then a case of, well, actually, I haven't lost anything. I've actually learned a massive lesson. And actually, this comes back to the education thing. I'm still learning, right? So I've gone through that. I've learned, all right, well, I could put that down to a mistake, or I could put that down to a big learning curve, but I'm not going to do it again. So how can I now grow upon that and develop? And, you know, another great book called The Slight Edge from Jeff Olson. For people, if they haven't read that, it's about, you know, that incremental gains on a day-to-day basis. It doesn't have to be all about money. Okay. So, you know, if you're going to lose money occasionally or invest into money, it's not about the money, because the money follows. It's about your personal growth and your personal kind of progression. And if you can make slight increments on a daily basis, learnings, and implement and learning, then, as we know as investors, a compounding effect will occur.
Oh yeah.
And so, you know, so 5 years down the line, if I can continue to create that progression, that grow in that network, then it will start to compound, and then the money will follow through. So that first kind of few years is a really really interesting period, that transitional period, like I like to call it. You know, it's quite a volatile period as well, in the sense, and a sensitive period in the sense that obviously we've got to have a real good grip on our finances. We've got to really truly understand what they are, because that's actually what drives us a lot of the time is the fear of losing money or not being able to put food on the table.
Yeah.
So as long as we know what the bottom line is, that we can sustain our lifestyle or sustain our living to an acceptable standard for what is us, then everything else is then a bonus. So that's what we have to play with. So, but we've got to get really in control of that, and then we can start growing from there. And then, you know, we should never be pushing ourselves anywhere near that kind of that kind of red line. And then, and like I said, and over time, as long as you're sort of learning, you're progressing, you're sharing, you're learning again, and taking constant action, then one day something will click, or an opportunity will come to you, which is like, wow, this is a great opportunity. I've been in the network long enough now. You know, people know me. They know I'm trying to do this. They know I've been bashing at the door for long enough. And then all of a sudden, someone's like, oh, by the way, I've got this deal potentially. Would you be interested in have a look at it? And then there you go. You've got that deal.
Yeah.
So a lot of the time, it's about bashing on the door until one day it will fall through. That's very, very true for property and any business, really, to be honest. So
fantastic. So that was your favorite book and your top tip.
Yeah. So so basically, educate, take action, and then also just understand about fear and how much fear is going to come back, come back to haunt you, and just don't give a fuck, basically, at the end of the day. I
Exactly.
mean, give it, no, you've got to give enough of a fuck to kind of ensure that you're sustaining. But ultimately, I think people
It's the
understand
bigger
what I'm
picture
trying to say.
we're
It's the
talking
bigger
about.
picture,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Amazing. I love your tip for a book, because from the last 11 episodes, I have from my first 11 episodes, let's call them. Can't believe it's been that many now. I was started not long ago. Yeah, so I had many times the same books were repeating, which is obviously not a bad thing, because obviously if people are keep recommending them, that means something. Yeah, for the beginners out there, just get those books and read them because people are keep recommending them. But you recommended something what it's been recommended to me few times, not only by property people. I have downloaded this book, but because I have other books started, I can't, you know how it goes, you need to finish one and then start
Yeah.
and yeah, I heard great things about that book. So coming now from a property investor as well, an entrepreneur, I'm even more excited to listen to this book now, because I'm listening to the books, I don't read them. So
yeah, and like I said, I said right at the start, the strategies only make up for 20% of the results, and all the strategy information is available. It's out there. It's either available for free on the internet somewhere if you dig deep enough. It's available on training courses for not that much, big investments, in books. So it's all out there. But actually, sometimes I believe we over focus on that. Actually, the thing that we should be focusing on is us. Like I said, we're the driving force. We're the decision makers. We're the people who are either going to push ourselves forward or hold ourselves back. And therefore, the books I read are all about that. It's all about personal development, about mindset, about understanding fear and the things that are going to hold us back and how we can break through those. The technical stuff, having a technical brain anyway, I can kind of figure out myself now. So when I look at an opportunity, I can kind of establish it again, because it's all about the numbers. If there's specific strategies and learnings that I want to learn, I'll go and I'll get that specific resource. But yeah, so I think if people were to own 5 books, 4 of them need to be on the mind, the power of the mind, the mindset, inspirational, that kind of thing, and 1 of them's got to be on strategy.
Fantastic. Great tips. Now, you already mentioned your favorite book now, which I absolutely love that. I always ask people as well for their favorite documentary or their favorite movie or something to watch. Now, you already mentioned before that you love the grand designs, so I don't know that will be that, or you have something else to recommend.
I'm not sure if that falls into either that category. I mean, it's definitely the best TV show out there. I mean, even now, Kevin McLeod does an amazing job. I love it. Because like I say, as a property person, it inspires the creativity of what's possible from an architectural perspective. Obviously, it kind of touches briefly on the budgetary side, and generally, obviously, everyone always goes over budget. Obviously, it's dramatized to the point where everyone generally always goes over budget. They either have a relationship breakdown or they're living in a caravan with a baby. Do you know what I mean? So that there is that element to it, but that's kind of adds to the enjoyment factor. But
a little bit of ooh.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But the actual products that they create, they're really like amazing products most of the time. They're new construction methods, because that was one of the core principles of the show, is it picks up people who are either doing something fairly wacky, or which is sort of a bit sort of forward thinking in terms of the method, the construction method, or the sustainability or the environmental elements as well. So there's a bit to learn there as well. Because I remember watching an episode about biomass boilers back in 20 years ago, 15 years ago now. And I was thinking, oh, that's an interesting one. And obviously they start to come into more, sort of the residential market. So there's that. But I wouldn't put that in there. I think what I'd say my favourite right now, I've from a documentary perspective, I don't know if you've watched it, but I've loved watching The Last Dance, which is all about the Chicago Bulls basketball team, primarily focused around Michael Jordan.
Oh, that on Netflix.
On Netflix, that's been great. That's quite inspiring. It's great to sort of see how these people of like Michael Jordan, for example, you take him, he's like the greatest of all time. Within the industry, he basically made the NBA, but he still had his faults. He still had his problems. He still had his challenges, and I think that's a good grounding thing as well. It's quite awe-inspiring as well. Also to understand the power of good guidance and coaching and mentorship. So the what's his name? Is it Phil Jackson? Maybe I think who was I think that's his name. Who was the coach at the time for the Chicago Bulls? He was clearly a powerful coach. He believed massively in philosophy, mindset, teamwork. So these are some of the things that actually drive people to the biggest results. And if you're a bit more of a deep thinker and you look at things in a little bit more of a deeper way, which is what I was looking at when watching this show, I was sort of pulling out some of those messages, which I think are really inspiring. So I think The Last Dance is a great documentary. In terms of a movie, there's just too many good ones to pick, to be honest with you.
Something would help you with your mindset, for example?
Well, I don't think life... I think the thing is, life's about getting a good balance, right? And I don't think I don't want to sort of over egg the whole mindset program, thing. I think, we've got to have a bit of fun every now and then. And I think, and so I think, we've got to just enjoy a movie for a movie's sake, So I don't know. There's too many good ones out there.
Overwhelmed.
Yeah, too many good ones. But something that isn't too mindset-y and whatever. Maybe, I don't know. Yeah, too many good ones. I've watched too many good ones. Yeah, I do like my movies.
Just learn something about Tana. Tana loves movies.
Yeah, I do quite like them. Yeah. Very much. Yeah.
That's good. Well, there's nothing bad about that. Liking your movies. For example, I'm a huge. One of my favorites are definitely comedy spy comedy movies, like badass girls, like Charlie's Angels. Oh my goodness, the old one. Absolutely love it. Or from a boy's point of view, Kingsman. Like, I just love something you can laugh, and the spies and the guns and all that. Oof.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of James Bond. Actually, I'd probably put them up there. James Bond films. I've got. I'm not wearing it now. But I've got a bit of James Bond memorabilia. I've got a James Bond watch, one of the 007 versions, and I'm quite into James Bond actually. So yeah, let's put that up there.
Nice.
Yeah, go for
spies, it. Yeah. We got the spies of there, guns and shooting.
Yeah, love a bit of that.
Amazing, great for mindset.
yeah. It got nothing to do with it really, but it's good to relax. Like I say, it's good to relax. It's good to
exactly.
change things up. So
I'm just making a joke because I don't watch movies that often by choice. I would love to watch it every day, but by choice, I'm not watching it that often. Like nothing to do with mindset. I just love pretty ladies kicking asses and shooting and things like that. Like, I love it.
Good for you. Why shouldn't you?
Exactly. Right, Anna. Okay, so now can you tell the our listeners more about your engineering wealth? What it is about? What is it?
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, again, I touched on it earlier. So the philosophy behind engineering wealth as a brand, as a business, is, like I said, is to help. It's an educational business where, because I love mentoring, I love coaching. That's just something, again, I love doing myself, and it's something I've always wanted to do more of. I have done coaching and mentoring for a long time, over the last few years, for other businesses. I still do it for other businesses as well. And I just enjoy that mentoring side of things, that the actual kind of answering questions, guiding, making people think for themselves, so that they're learning through that thought process. But the whole principle about engineering wealth, like I said, is to get people to think on a broader sense as to what wealth is. Okay, so we're all kind of wanting to jump into property to generally make money. That's usually the kind of the driver behind it. So my philosophy is, okay, well, why are you trying to make that money, for a start? So where is it that you want to go? Coming back to that lake, where are you going? Understanding also right now, where are you right now? And linking that with your finances, as well as your mindset and your kind of your personal lifestyle. So getting a really good grip on your finances is a core foundation. Mm-hmm. Knowing exactly where it is that you are right now in terms of the skills that you have or lack and need developing, understanding and painting a really clear picture as to where it is that you want to go in that. And by that, I mean the lifestyle. Okay, so what is it? Because a lot of people, again, jump into property and they jump into all these strategies that seem to be great strategies at the time, but they end up taking them down a path that actually they didn't want to go down, because actually they wanted to be hands-off investors, for example. Yeah. And now they're taking on loads of rent-to-rent SAs, and they've now got a business rent-to-rent SA business, and they never really wanted a business, for example, right? So it's like, well, where is it that you actually, where is that where you want to go? And then we plot the path, right? So if it is, and because we know where you are right now in terms of your finances, how much money you've got to invest, then we can now plot the journey forward, right? Okay, let's say, right, the first strategy that you're going to do is like, maybe HMOs or lease options, and we can pick up a couple of those, right? So the first plan is you pick up 2 of them. Then the next step from that point is you do something else, for example. Okay, and then we get you there. So that's kind of the general philosophy about it. But it's not just all about property. It's about kind of investing outside of property, diversifying, being smarter in terms of the way that we look at investments and manage our money. It's not all about, I don't believe, whilst I love property and it's by far my favorite investment class, and I'm always doing it and I'm loving the projects, I'm always very conscious about and ensuring that I'm investing in other ways. So I will invest in people. I will kind of lend money to people for projects, or I'll invest in other businesses on the stock market, or I'll invest in funds and index funds in my ISAs to pick up the other tax efficient ways of investing as well. To also diversify, like I said, across different investments. And even if people don't feel like they're maybe at the position to be able to do that financially right now, I think it's definitely something that people need to be aware of and be thinking of. So as you're growing it in that in that diversified approach, and you're not putting too many eggs in one basket, because again, it's about maximize upside, minimize downside. So it's thinking more like an investor from that perspective, and then also understanding again about money and how money works, how to then supplement that to supercharge your income to be able to invest more. So you're going to go through a phase. So you're going to go through a period from where you are now to where you want to go. If you're sort of feel like you're near the bottom in terms of your net wealth or your net worth, then you've got to grow that. So first of all, you're not just going to all of a sudden become a millionaire and be able to invest hundreds of thousands of pounds in a big deal. You need to grow there. So how can we get that up? So we're looking at how can you increase your current income? What options have you got available to do that? Can you renegotiate your salary? Can you start a sideline? If you're going to start a sideline, then let's make sure that it's the right sideline that's going to be the most efficient way to bring an income. When you bring in that income, make sure you're not spending it on nice cars and fancy clothes, etc. It's about, okay, now let's put that money aside. Let's build that pot. Let's pay off the debt. Let's grow. And then again, Rome wasn't built overnight. And the people who are out there in the industry telling you that you can become a millionaire overnight is just like, they should be shot. Because the reality is, it's not going to happen overnight. It takes time. But the thing, we live in a world where everything is instant. We've got everything on our phones. We even if we want to buy something, we can get it from Amazon within a day, if not within an hour, if you're using the certain areas. So everything's got to be instant. So our minds are now conditioned to get things instantly. So when we're like, right, we've made the decision that we want to become wealthy, it's like, well, why hasn't this happened already? But it's again also understanding that. So it's about understanding that it's actually the journey that gives us the most fulfillment, not the end, not necessarily the end destination. It's not necessarily that £1 million paycheck or that by all means it's a great windfall. But okay, once you've had that, then what? So it's actually that's part of the journey. So we've got to understand that and get understand how we're growing, and then to be constantly looking back and realizing and appreciating where we've come from and what we've now got today that we didn't have yesterday.
Right. Well, that all sounds really, really important.
So it's a bit obviously a bit of a deep explanation there, but I think on the whole, that's kind of the philosophy behind the brand.
Right, but I just wanted to clarify for those beginners out there, because obviously I do know you, but for those who don't know you, is that you're gonna help people to clarify all this when you are doing for your for your courses and stuff.
So in terms of products and services, so basically it was still a young brand, still a young business. So it's been going since the start of this year. So I'm sort of growing it up slowly. Right now, in terms of the service and offering, mentorship and coaching is the big thing. So I've got I run a number of one-to-one sessions. So I do one-to-ones, but primarily I have my core kind of flagship product right now is what's called the Property Incubator program. So this is a program that is designed to provide guidance, coaching, mentorship, but on a really sort of small, dedicated scale. So, you know, there's a number of programs out there, masterminds, where you can, you know, you pay quite a lot of money for the whole year. You get put into a big room. You maybe meet once a month within sort of like maybe hundreds of people or 100 people. You're sort of taught stuff, and that's got a value for networking. But what I believe is lacking is that kind of actual, like, real kind of small level, detailed guidance and coaching. So the incubator, what we do is we set people up into pods of 6 people maximum. It might not necessarily be 6 people in total, but you're basically in a pod with other people at your similar level. And then we work you through, as you know, as a pod, we guide you to the results that you want to get. So it creates amazing accountability within those 6 people, because it's almost, it creates a little bit of competition to ensure that you've done something by the next call, because you can't hide within a big crowd, right? Because there's only 6 people. It also creates some amazing opportunities for partnerships and JVs and supporting each other outside of the pod. But also we meet twice a month as well. So again, because I believe in regular accountability and regular, because again, you could, you know, go to one of these big events, get massively inspired, and then go back the next day, and then it's kind of gone, and the energies kind of dissipates over the course of the month. And you're like, oh, I've got to go back to that in a month's time. And then you go back again, you get massively inspired again, and then you don't really do much. This is about regular contact, about, okay, well, every 2 weeks we have a session. What you've been up to, why not, what the challenges, and because you're in that small group, it makes people more willing and open and comfortable to share more about some of the deeper challenges. So that's kind of the main thing. So the property incubator program. And so obviously, if anyone wants to chat about that, then you know, maybe if we can put some links below, we can get people to book in some calls and have a chat with me. It's very personal. You know, we discuss about, you know, whether we're a good fit for each other, and then we'll sort of move you forward from there. So that's the kind of the flagship. And then I've got some supplementary kind of actual online training courses. So over lockdown, I've created a new training course, which is called the Ultimate Property Investor. So this is based upon my 9 sort of step system, which is all about, it's called the Bridge of Property Wealth, being an engineer. So it's about how you go from where you are now to where you want to go. We kind of establish those core points, and then we kind of talk you through over the series of 9 modules to get to where it is that you want to go. And we cover different strategies. So we cover the 3, what I call the 3 winning strategies of 2020, which is lease options, HMOs, and commercial conversions. So they're the kind of sub training courses within the wider training course. So again, that's a program I'm really, really proud of. I'm getting some really great feedback on. I'll do some other smaller products as well that obviously people, if you're interested in, come and have a look. So jump over to the website, engineeringwealth.co.uk. That's still being developed, but I'm going to be adding more sort of wider wealth management to it as we go along. This is obviously just property right now, but as we grow, we're going to start sort of expanding it further afield as to money management, investing outside of property, and that's basically what it is at the moment. So we'll see where it goes from here. But some of the initial feedback I've got from clients has been really, really overwhelmingly kind, and you know, I can't appreciate them more for obviously investing in it, and also, you know, investing themselves and actually taking the action, which is the key thing. That's all it comes back down to.
You are great. You are great. I met you talking in the HPN, which is the Hampshire Property Network event, which you were one of the people who were organizing it. And I saw you talking there a few times before we even got more friendly, or whatever you would call it. Nobody friends. And I always had this, like, you're always very knowledgeable, you passionate about what you're doing, and you love helping people, and you always stay really calm as well. Like, it's really, you know, it's like I loved listening to you. So like, I would definitely say that whoever jumped on your course, it will great decision.
I appreciate that, Lenka. Yeah, no, it's been a real pleasure to obviously meet you at HPN. So for HPN, so Hampshire Property Network, for anyone who's unsure of what that is a property networking. It's been one of the longest running property networking events actually in the country. It was started up by a few other people 10, 12 years ago, I think. Maybe even
wow, I did not know that.
Yeah, so it's been running for a long time. It's completely unaffiliated to anything, so it's all sort of the core principles and values behind it it is all about knowledge sharing, and just kind of creating a network. And we meet on the south coast in Fareham, just outside Portsmouth, every month, second Wednesday of the month in the evening. Obviously, we haven't been able to meet over the last few months, but I would usually be meeting on the in July, second week of July, which is coming up. I think it's the 8th, but that can't go ahead either. So we're hopefully going to be starting that up again in August, all being well. But yeah, it's an amazing, fingers crossed. But it's an amazing event. I'm really proud to be part of it. I sort of, like I said, I sort of helped run it and host it now. There's a number of us who do it, and we're all quite fairly knowledgeable at the different stages of our investing careers. As a team, we own sort of well over 25 million pounds worth of property. So it's, it's loads of knowledge there, but we get some really knowledgeable people and experienced people coming along, as well as a lot of sort of newer starters and within property. So there's a great mix. It's a great environment. Yeah. So if anyone's local to that area, then they should definitely look that up or drop me a message. I'll put you over. In fact, HampshirePropertyNetwork.com. So we'll put that on the, again, show notes if we can. They can click on that and then keep up to speed with that. Yeah, it's a great network.
100%. Amazing.
Yeah. But like I said, it's been an absolute pleasure to sort of obviously get to know you through that, and we've got to know each other a lot better over the last couple of years as a result. We've worked together on stuff as well. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm very, very glad I went for the HPN and I and I kept coming. Glad I met you, Tana.
Yeah, no, likewise, Lenka. And obviously, even though you've moved far afield, hopefully you can start coming back to it when it starts back up again. And it's like I said, I appreciate you for inviting me onto this, and I appreciate everything that you've done for me as well over the last couple of years to support me in my business, and as well as Ben as well, who you're a partner. So it's been great.
Yeah, now we are quite far away now. We are in Devon now.
Yeah.
We ran away, but it gives you a nice. If you ever want to come for a nice holiday, I keep posting how beautiful Devon is. So one day, hopefully, I'm going to receive a phone call and say, "Lenks, can we come on holiday?" It's like, "Yep."
100%, we'll do that. Yeah, definitely. So got a new baby on the way in the next month. So once that's sort of settled down and we've sort of we'll definitely be heading down your way, definitely, for sure.
I didn't know. Or is that something I forgot? No, I would remember. I didn't know.
No, I've sort of I kind of like to keep that stuff fairly private. But so we do mid-August. So if people suddenly don't hear from me for about 2 to 4 weeks, that will be why.
Oh, congratulations!
Thank you very much. Yeah,
and mid-August, just like me, it's gonna be awesome, baby.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, good time of year to be born, I think.
The little lion.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Leo.
Oh, that's amazing. Well done.
Thank
what
you.
A great news. I feel very privileged that you said that. You said that news on my show today. Amazing. Tana, and also I just want to say in regards to your engineering wealth, just before I forget, I absolutely love the name Engineering Wealth.
Thank you.
It's really clever. It's really, really clever. And I love your logos and all the pictures, like Engineering Wealth, really. I can't show you my hand.
You.
But you know what I'm trying to do.
Yeah, no, thank you. I've actually, I should say on that point about the branding is I've been working with a guy called Kiki who's helped me with the branding, who is just literally the best person I've had the pleasure of working with. So if anyone is at the start of their journey looking for branding advice, looking for logo design, website design, I cannot rate this guy highly enough. We've become really close over the last sort of year since working together. I'm sort of giving him a bit of advice as well as to his business. He's growing his business called 9 Designs. If you want to reach out to anyone who's definitely going to look after you and properly over deliver, which is what he does every single week, then you definitely got to get in touch with him. Let him know that I've sent you over, and he'll make sure he'll look after you.
Oh, amazing!
He'll help him out as well, grow his business. He's a really great guy. So so all that branding was done by him, it's great. I'm really pleased with it.
Oh, fantastic. Well, you can pass me the message as well. I'm a big fan.
Yeah, I will do.
Right, Anna. I think we covered everything we really needed, didn't we? Let me just check my little notes, which I didn't even have to have a look at today.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, I think we covered everything. So you tell us, we know who Tana is. We know about your everything you do outside of your property landlording life, like with your all the projects and everything, and your products. You explained to the beginners what a lease options is. You gave us top tips. Is there anything else you would like to add? How to contact you, especially to start with?
Yeah, okay. Well, the website is a good place to start. It's engineeringwealth.co.uk. I'm on all social channels as well, so maybe we can get the handles put out there.
Yeah.
I do have a Facebook group, Engineering Wealth Facebook group, so people listening to this jump into that. I share posts daily in there on different inspirational posts, share some of my projects and things as well as kind of I'm there to kind of help support people go through what they're going through. So they can get into that. Obviously, follow me on Facebook, add me as a friend, Instagram as well. So there's loads of different ways in this modern day and age to connect.
Yeah.
So just search Tanner H. Hicks, and you'll be able to find me on there. Yeah, and in terms of sort of, I mean, there's quite a lot that we haven't covered. I mean, there's quite a lot of other businesses and stuff I'm involved in, but that's maybe for another day. But I think for some kind of sort of to leave on some tips or some advice for people, and I always sort of say this to people is there's three big things that people should always be prioritizing, and if there's three things you should ever do in life, it's these three. And so the first one is we've got to think of ways to be adding value to other people's lives. So property is, and I went through a bit of self-reflection within property not that long ago about, well, why I'm in property. I'm in property just to make myself loads of money, and it's I felt like it was quite a selfish thing, the reason why I was doing it. So but really it's about trying to figure out, therefore, what value you're adding to other people, because that's how we get the most kind of, I suppose, joy and sort of fulfillment in life is adding value to other people's lives. So if you're feeling like that right now, it's that you're kind of doing it for the money. You want to be thinking about how to flip that into how are you actually benefiting other people from being in property. So through your service or through the rooms that you're going to create some really great accommodation, or how you're going to work with other people to maybe support them, or give back to other people once you've made that money, for example. So adding value in life is key, and the more you can add value to people, the more personally that you'll become wealthy, but not only from a financial perspective, because the money will follow, but from like I said, from a fulfillment perspective as well. So that's the first, I suppose, big tip I kind of try and instill in everyone. The second one is about education. Obviously, we now live in a world where education is massive. It's a big industry in itself, but we need to be creating ourselves daily habits that kind of attract us towards wealth. And wealth, I mean, again, quite holistically, not just necessarily just money, but wealth within itself, with oneself, relationships, love, etc. So, and the only way we can create those habits is by educating ourselves as to what those habits are, and learning daily and sort of reading up and about lots of different things. So that's the second tip. And then the third tip, which is the biggest tip for anyone, is you've got to learn to appreciate what you've currently got. Because if you don't appreciate what you've currently got now, then regardless of what journey you're just about to go on to, or how much money you're going to make over the next 10 years, you're never going to appreciate it then. So you'll just be in a cycle of non-appreciation. Okay.
Absolutely.
So we're incredibly fortunate to live in a world where we've got access to smartphones and technology and comfort and Amazon and all these things. That's something to be massively appreciative for. The people around us, I think we take for granted. Yeah, gratitude jar. Yeah, love it. Yeah, love it.
Lots of
it's so important. It's so important, and it's something I overlooked for years. And again, it's something only in the last 2 to 3 years that I realised that I've got to be really grateful for what I've got around me already. Because if I can't be grateful for what I've got, what's the point, eh? The people around me, the family, the things, not only just the material things, but the fact that I've got a roof over my head, I've got money, enough money to sustain stuff. I couldn't ask for anything more in life. So everything from now on is a bonus. And once you appreciate it and see it in that way, your life is going to start changing hugely.
Amazing. Have you heard? I'm sure you haven't heard of the book called Secret. Yeah. So
The Secret.
Secret. Yeah. So
I
many
have heard of it. Yeah.
Yeah, so many people misunderstand this book. Many people believe that, oh, you just have to believe, and things are gonna happen. So yeah, that is not quite true. I love this book. Don't get me wrong here, but some people misunderstanding it. They forget that action comes with that belief as well. Now, the reason why I'm saying that is that actually there's a second part of this book called Magic, and in the Magic, like I love all this stuff. So I'm a huge fan. But in that Magic book, they giving you a little training to do, little thing to do, basically practice, and they tell you to either take your favorite stone, a little crystal, whatever, and if you don't have one, go on the beach and just pick up a little stone which is calling you. Just make something special to you. Pick up that stone, yeah, and when you go to bed, every single night, until you get habit of it, yeah. So every single night, you take that stone, you hold in your hand, and you say 10 things you are grateful for. And those things could be completely different things that the most obvious things people can think of. It could be things like, I'm grateful for my eyes so I can see. I'm grateful for my legs so I can walk to the car. Thank you for the car so take me to work. Thank you for my work so I can pay the bills, and things like that. So even things you wouldn't even normally think of. So doesn't need to be the materialistic things. And yeah, it's a really nice practice for those who are not in that mode yet, of the gratitude, of being grateful. So that's a really nice little practice to do. Just every day, just say.
Great one. Love it.
Yeah, it's really, 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 really
cool. I love it, Lenka. That's really cool. Yeah, no, I love that. And I think, this is the kind of stuff that I was alluding to earlier, the kind of the airy fairy stuff that I was like, I don't need any of that. Life's just about cracking on, and like you're going to get some down days, and it's just about picking yourself up, dusting yourself up. A bit like that kind of like, as you've sort of brought up as a kid, it's just like, oh, get up, you're fine, dust yourself off.
Brush your knees off and continue.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's only when life starts to become more complex as we grow older, and that it becomes more and more important to do that. And I think that's the foundation that we've all got to work on. So I love that. I haven't read that book, but I think I will. I've heard a lot of good things about it.
About Secret or about the Magic?
About the Secret.
The Secret, yeah. I'm sure that it's on Audible now as well.
Yeah.
If you want to, because it's something very. Or are you more into reading? When would you have time for reading? I don't believe you read books.
No, I'll be honest. I'm a huge reader. I do try and squeeze in sort of 10-15 minutes a day.
That's amazing.
But yeah, I've never been a big reader, to be honest with you. But it's so important.
Very busy. That's all I try to say.
No, I do. But again, it's about these habits, right? It's about trying to create these habits that are good for you. So that's one of the things that I try and do. And if I'm not necessarily reading a book, I'll be reading some form of kind of literature on my phone or on the laptop or whatever at the desk. So. Just to continue educating something. But anyway, listen, as you know, you and I could chat forever, I think, and maybe, like I said, when we come down to Devon with the family, we'll do that. But this has been great, and I think people have probably had enough of my voice now. So.
I think it is the time to wrap it up. But as I said, you have so much knowledge, and you are also in many other aspects of property business as well, so maybe you could come on the show one more time sometimes.
100%. I will come in. I will come on as much or as little as you'd like me to come on, Lenka. So you just drop me a text. You know where I am. So you just let me know what you want us to cover, and we'll come on.
Fantastic, because I'm sure this show's going to go on for a while. So
Yes. I'm really kind of pleased and excited for you. I think you've got a great show here. You've already got some amazing people on as well, which already shows the impact that this show's having on people. And you should be really proud of it.
Oh, thank you, my little baby. This is my little baby.
Yeah.
You didn't do really well with the lights today. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
I'll figure it out. Start now, get perfect later. So
exactly. 100%. I love it. I love that philosophy.
Exactly. Right, Tana. Well, as I said, let's wrap it up here. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I'm sure that everybody will learn a lot from you today. They were great tips, as always. You are fantastic. Again, thank you very much. And have a fantastic rest of the day. And I'm looking forward to having you on the show again soon.
Yeah. Thanks, Lenka. Yeah, take care. Appreciate it. And keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Tana.
See you soon. Bye.
Bye.